The forgotten fan in the rain. It was raining hard that morning. The streets of Toronto were gray, soaked, and quiet, except for the sound of wheels slicing through puddles. Near a small theater on Queen Street, a young girl stood under a broken umbrella. Her name was Maya. She was 17, wearing a soaked hoodie, torn jeans, and holding a carefully wrapped piece of paper in her shivering hands. Mia had been standing there for over 4 hours. She knew this was where Keanu Reeves was filming today. Not many people knew it. Just a few fans, scattered in corners, holding posters and hoping for a glimpse. But Mia wasn't there for a selfie. She wasn't there to scream or ask for an autograph. She just wanted to give him something. Something she made. In the paper she held was a drawing. It wasn't perfect. The lines were rough in places. The shading wasn't pro. But it came from a place of deep love. It was a portrait of Keanu, not as John Wick or Neo, but as himself. Quiet, kind, thoughtful. She had stayed up 3 nights to finish it, even skipping her after-school job just to get it right. This wasn't just fan art. It was a message. A thank you from a girl whose world had crumbled. 1 year ago, Mia lost her father. He died in a car crash just 5 blocks from home. They had been arguing that night. She told him she hated him, and then he was gone. The guilt broke her in ways no one saw. She stopped drawing, stopped speaking, and even stopped eating for a while. But one night, while scrolling numbly through her mom's old laptop, she stumbled on a clip of Keanu talking about grief. "Grief doesn't go away," he said softly. "It changes. But it's always with you. And that's okay." Something about those words cracked the wall inside her. She watched more. Interviews, speeches, quiet moments where Keanu comforted others. He didn't pretend to have all the answers. He didn't try to fix anything. He just understood. And that was when she picked up her pencil again. So now she stood, soaked and shaking, hoping maybe, just maybe, she could hand him her drawing and say thank you. Not with words, because hers still trembled, but with the lines and curves of a face that reminded her that kindness still existed in the world. Hours passed. Security paced the sidewalks. Crew members carried wires and lights inside the theater. The other fans had left, cold and tired, but Mia stayed. She was used to waiting. Finally, the black SUV pulled up. She recognized it instantly. The windows were tinted, but she knew. Her heart thudded in her chest, louder than the rain. She took a step forward, then froze. Her shoes squelched on the wet ground. Her throat was dry. The car door opened, and there he was. Keanu Reeves stepped out, dressed in a long coat, hair slightly damp from the mist. He looked tired. Maybe he hadn't slept much, but his eyes scanned the street like he always did, noticing everyone, even when no one was looking at him. He nodded to a crew member, said something polite, and began walking toward the entrance. Mia panicked. Her hand shook. What if he didn't stop? What if the guards blocked her? What if the paper got wet and ruined everything? But then, as he passed, his eyes caught hers. He paused. For a second, the world slowed down. The rain kept falling, but she couldn't feel it. He looked at her. Really looked. She held out the wrapped drawing with both hands, like it was the last thing she had in the world. The guard stepped forward, ready to stop her. But Keanu lifted his hand. "It's okay," he said. He walked up to her, gently took the drawing, and unwrapped it right there in the rain. His eyes scanned the lines, the details. His hand didn't tremble, but his face changed. He looked up at her, blinking once, then again. For a long moment, he didn't say a word. He just stared at her, then at the drawing, then back at her. "Did you make this?" he asked quietly. Mia nodded. "What's your name?" she barely whispered. "Mia." He smiled softly. "Thank you, Mia. This is beautiful." And then he did something no one expected. He stepped aside from the entrance, looked at the guard, and said, "Hold my call time for 5 minutes." The guard looked confused. "But—" Keanu didn't argue. He just walked to the nearby bench, still holding the drawing, and sat down. He looked at Mia and patted the seat next to him. "Come, tell me your story." For a second, she didn't move. This couldn't be real. It wasn't a dream, right? But she stepped forward, sat beside him, and for the first time in a year, her words started to return. She didn't tell him everything, just enough. About her dad, about the night she stopped drawing, about the night she saw his video, about how the drawing wasn't just a gift, it was a bridge from where she was to where she hoped she could be again. Keanu listened. Really, listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't pity her. He just sat in silence as the rain fell softly around them. When she finished, he said, "Mia, your pain matters. And what you created, it speaks. It really speaks." He looked down at the drawing again, then folded it gently like it was priceless. "Do you have a phone?" She nodded and handed it to him, confused. He typed something and handed it back. "I just sent you my art director's contact. I think you have a gift. If you ever want help developing it, reach out. No pressure. Just know. Someone sees you." Mia couldn't speak. She could only cry. But they weren't the broken tears of the past year. They were warm, full, and hopeful. Then he stood up, smiled one last time, and walked inside the theater. The bench was wet. Her hoodie was soaked, but she sat there another hour, holding her phone and staring at the drawing he didn't take with him, because he asked her to keep it safe. "It belongs to your healing," he had said. And for the first time, she believed she might be okay. The message she didn't expect the next morning. The sun peeked gently through gray clouds, warming the wet sidewalks of Toronto. Mia sat by her window, the same old blanket around her shoulders, a half-finished cup of tea in her hand. Her eyes kept drifting to her phone on the table, like it might buzz with magic. It had been less than 24 hours since she met Keanu Reeves. Less than a day since he called her art beautiful. Since he paused his shoot to sit in the rain and listen. Since he gave her his art director's contact. But now, in the quiet of her room, doubts began to whisper. Maybe he just said that to be kind. Maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe nothing would happen at all. She reached for her sketchbook, flipping past blank pages until she reached the newest one, a fresh sketch of him sitting on that rainy bench. Shoulders relaxed, face calm. She had drawn it late into the night, using memory and feeling. This time, the pencil didn't feel heavy. It moved like it belonged in her hand again. Just as she began shading his coat, her phone buzzed. She froze. For a second, she just stared at the screen, afraid to hope. Then slowly, she picked it up. There was a message, unknown number. "Hi, Mia. This is Lena, Keanu's art director. He told me about your drawing. He asked me to see your work. He said, she sees people. Do you have a few sketches you can share?" Mia blinked. Once. Twice. Then her hands moved fast. She opened her gallery, took photos of her sketchbook, the portrait, the bench scene, an old drawing of her father she made years ago, and even one of her mom she never showed anyone. Her fingers hesitated over the send button. Was this really happening? She pressed it. Sent. Her chest rose and fell quickly, heart racing. Minutes passed. Then, another message. "These are stunning, Mia. Raw. Emotional. Have you ever thought about studying art seriously? Professionally?" Mia sat down. No one had ever said that to her. Ever. She typed slowly. "I wanted to, but we couldn't afford classes. My mom works 2 jobs, and after my dad, I stopped trying." 3 dots appeared as Lena typed back. "I understand. Would you be open to meeting me and a few others? We'd love to talk. Keanu has a small project that might be perfect for you. No pressure. Just a project. Before she could let fear answer for her, she typed, "Yes, thank you." She didn't tell her mom right away. Her mom had been working late, doing a double shift at the diner. When she came home that night, Mia just helped her take off her shoes and quietly placed a warm bowl of soup on the table. But later, when the dishes were done and the house was calm, Mia sat next to her on the couch and told her everything. Her mom didn't believe it at first. She thought Mia was making it up. But when she showed the message, the contact, the invitation, her mom's eyes filled with tears. "Your dad would be so proud," she whispered, holding Mia tight. 2 days later, Mia stood outside a quiet studio space tucked between two warehouses near the city's edge. She clutched her sketchbook tightly. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart felt like it was walking faster than her feet. Inside, it was quiet, cozy, sunlit from large windows. On the walls were storyboards, posters, and sketches of different film characters. And at the far end stood a woman in glasses holding a tablet. "You must be Mia," the woman said warmly. "I'm Lena." They shook hands. "Come," Lena smiled. "I want you to meet someone." They walked down a hall and entered a smaller room. In it were 3 people, an older man with a gray beard, a younger woman typing on a laptop, and Keanu. He stood up the moment he saw her. "Mia," he said, like they had been old friends. "I was hoping you'd come." She smiled shyly. "Thank you for giving me a chance," she said. Keanu gestured to the others. "This is Greg. He's directing a short film. And this is Sam, our script editor." They all greeted her kindly. Keanu sat down and said, "We're working on a new piece, something small, quiet, about loss and healing. And we thought, your sketches could guide the visual tone. Would you be interested in helping shape how it looks?" Mia's eyes widened. "I've never worked on anything like that," she said. "That's okay," Lena added. "We're not asking for perfection, just your perspective, your heart. We saw your sketches. You see more than just faces. You see what people feel." Keanu leaned forward, voice soft. "We don't want you to change. We want you to grow." That sentence sat deep in her chest. No one had ever said it to her like that. That night, back home, Mia opened a blank page, and she drew. Not just faces, not just sadness, but the gentle light in someone's eyes. A hand reaching out, a quiet tear, falling not from pain, but from peace. Her mother passed by her room and paused at the door. "You're smiling," she said softly. Mia looked up. "Yeah," she whispered. "I think I'm healing." The storm behind the smile, the following week, felt like a dream. Maya now spent her mornings sketching at the small studio, sipping warm tea as Greg showed her different scenes from the short film. She wasn't just observing, she was helping. Her drawings were being pinned on walls, referenced by lighting crews, and even printed for wardrobe discussions. Her voice, once shaky, was being heard, and Keanu, he came by the studio twice. Not as a movie star, but as a calm presence. He asked questions, real ones. "How are you sleeping? Did the lines in that sketch come from memory or feeling?" And each time, he listened like her answers truly mattered. But beneath all this joy, a quiet storm had started to form. One afternoon, after a long day of sketching, Mia got on the subway to go home. She felt light, like something inside her had finally started to heal. Her backpack held a folder with concept art she was proud of. Her phone buzzed now and then with kind messages from Lena and Sam. But as she stepped off the train and walked toward her neighborhood, she saw the notice on her apartment door, a pink slip, bold letters, "Past due." Her smile faded. She pulled it down and walked inside, finding her mom sitting on the couch, head in her hands. "Mom?" Mia asked gently. Her mother looked up, eyes red and tired. "I didn't want you to see that yet," she whispered. "I've been trying to catch up, but it's just too much. Rent's behind 2 months now." Mia sat beside her, slowly folding the notice. "You've been working double shifts." "I know," her mother said, voice breaking. "But after your father died, it got worse. Hospital bills, the accident case, they drained everything. And now I don't know if we can keep this place." Mia didn't cry. Not this time. She just sat still, her fingers tightening around the paper. Then, silently, she stood up, went to her room, and opened her sketch folder. Her hands trembled as she looked at the drawings. The ones Keanu praised. The ones they pinned on studio walls. The ones she thought would only live in her journal. For the first time, she wondered, could they really change her life? She spent the night scanning every sketch, every portrait, even old forgotten ones that still carried her soul. Then she did something bold. She created an online portfolio. Free website, simple layout. She uploaded them all, titled each one with care, and wrote this line at the top. "I draw what I feel, because sometimes feeling is louder than words." Then she added her contact. The next morning, after hours of hesitation, she sent the link to Lena. "I hope this helps," she wrote. "Thank you for everything." At the studio, she sat quietly in the corner, unsure if anyone had even seen her message. Lena hadn't replied yet, and she was afraid she'd crossed a line. But before lunch, Keanu walked in. He wasn't alone. A woman in a blazer followed him, tall, sharp, with a confident voice. They walked straight to her. "Mia," Keanu said with a soft smile. "This is Diane. She works with a gallery downtown. I showed her your portfolio last night." Mia blinked. You did?" Keanu nodded. "I sent her the link you shared with Lena." Diane stepped forward. "Your work is powerful," she said, flipping through her tablet. "It's not just art. It's a story. I want to offer you a space in our upcoming showcase, Young Voices in Modern Healing. It's next month. And we'll pay you for every piece sold." Mia sat there, mouth slightly open, unsure if she'd heard right. I don't know what to say." Keanu gently rested a hand on her shoulder. "Say yes." She did. The following. Days moved quickly. Her sketches were printed, framed, and carefully labeled. She picked 5 pieces, one of her father, one of her mother, one of herself as a child, and 2 brand new ones, one of the bench in the rain, and one of a man holding space in silence. A portrait of Keanu not as a celebrity, but as a listener. Word spread faster than she expected. A small article was published online. "Teen artist finds healing through unexpected friendship with Keanu Reeves." The headline made her laugh a little, but the response, overwhelming. Messages poured in, from strangers, other grieving teens, moms, even war veterans. They all said the same thing. "Your art makes me feel seen." Then came the biggest surprise. Lena called her one afternoon, excited. "You need to sit down," she said. "A major brand. They saw your work online. They want to license one of your pieces for their mental health campaign." Mia's hand covered her mouth. "They're offering $5,000. She almost dropped the phone. 5,000 more than enough to cover rent. More than enough to buy her mom time to breathe again. That night, Mia sat with her mom at the tiny kitchen table, sliding the printed contract across the table. Her mom stared at it, not speaking. "We're going to be okay," Mia whispered. Her mother reached across the table and held her daughter's face in her hands, tears sliding down her cheeks. "No, Mia," she said softly. "You made us okay." But Mia shook her head. "No. He made me believe again." She pointed to the folded drawing on her shelf, the one she almost gave away. Keanu's face, smiling faintly through the lines, a silent promise in pencil. The art that saved her. The gallery lights were soft and warm, casting a golden glow across the white walls. Framed sketches lined the room in quiet rows, each one telling its own silent story. People walked slowly, whispering, staring, pausing. Mia, stood near the corner of the room, wearing a simple dress her mom had ironed 3 times that morning. Her shoes were scuffed, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes were full of light. Her drawings were there, 5 of them, each one a piece of her broken heart, now whole again, each one holding a memory she thought she'd never be strong enough to face. Above her favorite piece, the one of the rainy bench, was a small printed card that read, "Hope waits, even in the rain." Maya people kept stopping at that one. Some cried. Some took photos. A woman in a wheelchair reached out and gently touched the edge of the frame, whispering to her nurse, This feels like my husband." A teenage boy stood still for 5 minutes, staring at the drawing of Mia's father, the one where his face was drawn half in shadow, half in light. And then she heard his voice. "You did something amazing here, Mia." She turned. Keanu was standing behind her, wearing a simple black jacket and jeans, hands in his pockets, smiling quietly. "You came?" she said, stunned. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied. For a moment, they just stood together, looking at the walls. "Do you see them?" Keanu asked. "See who?" "The ones who needed this. The ones who thought they were alone, until they saw your drawings." Mia looked around, and she saw an old man wiping his glasses, a mother whispering a story to her young daughter, a couple, holding hands, squeezing tight as they stood before a drawing of 2 figures sitting on a bench. "You helped them feel," Keanu said. "You gave them language without words." "But I'm just a girl with a pencil," she said. "That's all it takes," he said. "Kindness, honesty, and the courage to show your pain." After the gallery closed, they all gathered in the back room. Mia, her mom, Keanu, Lena, Greg, and the gallery owner. There were soft drinks, cupcakes, and quiet laughter. Mia's mom had baked a small tray of her famous chocolate chip cookies, and even Keanu asked for seconds. But then, as the group was winding down, Lena cleared her throat. "We have one more. Surprise," she said, nodding toward Keanu. He pulled out a folder from his jacket. "I wanted to wait until tonight," he said, placing it on the table. Mia opened it slowly. Inside was a contract. At the top, it read, "Art Residency, sponsored by the Reeves Creative Foundation." Her mouth dropped open. "I don't understand." "We've been quietly helping young artists who've gone through hard things," Keanu explained. "You'd be the first one in our new program. Full support, training, mentorship, even a small stipend. We want to give you space to grow, to breathe, and to keep creating." Mia looked at her mother, who covered her mouth in disbelief. "This is real?" Mia whispered. "Only if you want it to be," Keanu said. Mia looked around the room, at the people who believed in her, at the drawings that once held only grief and now carried life, and she nodded. "Yes," she said. "I want it." Keanu smiled. "Good. Then your journey really begins now." A few days later, as she packed her sketchbooks and materials for her first official week at the residency, something happened she didn't expect. A letter came in. The mail. No return address, just her name written in careful handwriting. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single page. "Dear Mia, I was at the gallery. I didn't speak to you. I couldn't. But I wanted you to know. My daughter passed away 2 years ago. I haven't been able to talk about it, haven't even been able to look at her photos. But your sketch, the one with the girl sitting under the tree, it cracked something open. I sat in front of it for 10 minutes, and I cried. Not the broken kind, the good kind. Thank you. You reminded me that grief isn't the end. It's just a different way of loving." J.M. Mia folded the letter and placed it inside her sketchbook. It didn't matter who J.M. was. What mattered was that someone out there felt less alone, and that somehow her pain had become someone else's light. The voice inside the pencil, the art residency building, was quiet that morning. Sunlight spilled across the floor through tall glass windows, brushing over wooden desks and shelves stacked with paints, papers, and half-finished dreams. Mia stepped inside with her backpack slung over one shoulder, sketchbook tucked tightly in her arms. Her footsteps echoed softly as she walked past the others. A few sculptors, painters, even a young poet scribbling in the corner. It had only been 1 week since her first gallery show, but everything had changed. Her phone no longer stayed silent. Her name had begun popping up on art blogs. An editor from a small publisher even sent a message. Would you consider turning your story into a graphic book? But none of that compared to the feeling she carried inside now. Like the weight of the world wasn't just on her shoulders anymore, but shared with people who finally saw her. Her mother had cried again that morning. Not from sadness, but from joy. Rent was caught up. The fridge was full. And more than anything, she said, you have your voice back. Still, as Maya sat down in her new workspace, surrounded by fresh paper and unfamiliar faces, a small fear tugged at her heart. What if I can't draw today? What if I've already shared my best work? What if I've lost the feeling that started it all? She took a deep breath and opened her sketchbook. The pencil felt heavy in her hand. Her fingers trembled a little. She stared at the blank page. Nothing came. Not even a shape. Not a line. Her mind was full of noise, praise, pressure, expectations. For the first time in weeks, she felt unsure again. Then her phone buzzed, a message from Keanu. New challenges always come with quiet fear. Trust it. Walk with it. And then draw anyway. She didn't know how he always knew when to reach out. But his words sat deeply. Draw anyway. She pressed the pencil tip to the page and closed her eyes. She didn't think. She just let it move. Curves formed, then lines, then a shape. 2 figures sitting on a bus. One staring out the window, the other staring at their hands. Silent. Separate. But the space between them, it glowed. She opened her eyes and smiled. By the end of the day, she had finished 3 new sketches. Each one spoke of the in-between, of spaces where people passed each other, never speaking, yet carrying stories inside them. When Lena visited the residency that evening, she paused in front of the 3rd sketch. This one, she said, pointing to a drawing of a girl sitting in a laundromat. Feels like grief and hope are sharing the same bench. Mia nodded. That's what I wanted it to feel like. You nailed it, Lena said, but then she paused. Mia, there's something else. She sat beside her, pulling out a folder. There's a man named Thomas, she said. He's working with a center for youth mental health. They're building an awareness campaign. Real stories, real feelings. They want your drawings to be the face of it. They want you to be the artist behind the campaign. Mia's eyes widened. Me? Yes. Your story, your journey, your art. They want to show teens that it's okay to feel broken, and they want your work to be their mirror. Mia looked at her hands. They were shaking again. But this time, it was excitement. They're offering a small payment. Not a lot. But I don't care about that, Mia said quickly. If it helps someone, anyone, I want to do it. Lena smiled. I knew you'd say that. The next few weeks were a blur. Photo shoots, interviews, a short documentary clip where Mia talked softly about how she used to hide her sketchbook under her bed, and every time someone asked her how it all started, she said the same thing. Man saw my drawing. And he stopped. That's it. He just stopped. And he listened. Keanu never asked for credit. He never even appeared in the media pieces. But he called once a week, sometimes just to say, keep going. Sometimes just to ask, have you drawn for yourself this week? Because he knew. The moment the art became just work, it would lose its heart. So Mia always kept one sketch just for her. Not for a gallery, not for a campaign, just something her soul needed to say. One evening, she got an email that made her stop breathing. It was from the director of a major art museum. In New York, the subject line, Invitation to Young Visionary Series. Inside, it read, "We would be honored to feature your work in our new exhibit, Voices of Recovery." Your story, your journey, and your sketches speak to the world in ways we cannot measure. Please consider sharing 3 original pieces. Travel and accommodations will be covered. Mia closed her laptop slowly. Her heart was full. She picked up her phone and texted one person. "He said they want to call me a visionary," Keanu replied within seconds. "They're just now catching up to what we already knew." The day the world listened. The museum in New York was larger than anything Mia had ever stepped into. Marble floors, tall arches, whispers that echoed like they belonged to another world. Yet somehow, it didn't make her feel small. Not this time. This time she stood inside the echo with her chin lifted, her fingers wrapped around the handle of her sketch portfolio. Next to her stood her mother, nervous, proud, and dressed in her best outfit. Behind her, a gentle crowd was already gathering. Artists, press, students, even doctors from clinics that used her mental health campaign sketches were coming to see her work. But there was one person she hadn't seen yet. Keanu wasn't there. Or at least, not yet. Mia walked quietly into the gallery space titled Voices of Recovery. On the left wall hung her 3 selected pieces, not the ones that looked the most professional, not the ones that got the most likes online. She chose the ones that made people stop and feel. The girl in the laundromat, staring into nothing. The father's hands, holding a small paper airplane, caught between memory and grief. And the final one, newly drawn, titled, He Stopped. It was her most powerful piece, a sketch of a man in the rain, standing still, reaching for a girl with a drawing in her hands. No umbrellas, no background noise, just a pause in the middle of chaos. She had drawn it last. She didn't even plan to send it. But something inside told her this was how the story had to be shared. Not with his face clearly shown, but with the moment frozen, the one that changed everything. As guests walked past it, they stopped longer than at any other piece. Some wiped their eyes, some leaned in closer, some said nothing and just stood still. And then, she heard his voice behind her. "You didn't have to draw me, Mia." She turned. Keanu was there, wearing a dark suit, his hair slightly messy, and a soft smile on his face. "But I had to," she replied. He looked at the sketch, eyes moving, over the soft pencil lines, the expression on the girl's face, the stillness in the man's stance. "You made it more than a picture," he said. "You made it a story." Mia nodded. "Because it was never about just you. It was about what you did when no one else looked. You stopped. You saw me." He turned to her. "And now the world sees you." The museum director called everyone to attention. They asked Mia to step forward and say a few words. Her hands trembled at first. The microphone felt too big. The room too quiet. The lights too bright. But she looked at her mom, then at Keanu, and then at her drawings, and she began to speak. "A year ago," she said softly, "I was invisible. Not because people didn't look at me, but because I had forgotten how to look at myself." She paused, took a deep breath, and continued. But someone stopped. In the middle of a busy, rainy day, he stopped. And that moment, that pause, told me I mattered. It gave me the courage to draw again, to speak again, to feel again. And today I'm not just sharing my art, I'm sharing a truth, that kindness is not small. It's everything. The room was still. Then came the applause. But it wasn't loud. It was gentle, respectful, like a thank you, whispered through clapping hands. After the speech, a woman came up to her with tears in her eyes. She was holding a sketchbook. "I haven't drawn since my daughter died," she said, "but after today I'm going to try again." Another girl handed Mia a folded letter. A man from a clinic asked if he could use her laundromat sketch for his next therapy group. And with every person, every moment, Mia realized her story wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who carried silent pain. It belonged to the heart still healing. That night, Keanu walked with her to the sidewalk outside the museum. "You've done something beautiful, Mia," he said quietly. She looked up at him. "So have you," he smiled. "I just listened," she shook her head. "You gave me space to find myself, and now I want to do that for others." "You will," he said. "You already are." A breeze passed between them, and then Keanu reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." She unfolded it slowly. It was her first drawing, the one she gave him in the rain, the one he had looked at and held in silence. "You kept it," she whispered. He nodded. "Of course I did. It reminded me that sometimes the most powerful art comes from the quietest voices." He paused. "But now it's time you had it back. It's not mine anymore." Mia looked at the drawing. The face she had sketched through tears. The pencil lines that carried all her pain and all her hope. And now, she saw something different in it. Strength. Not brokenness. Not sorrow. But the strength of someone who didn't give up. She folded it again, gently, and placed it in her sketchbook. Not as an ending, but as a beginning. A month later, she started her own art program for teens dealing with grief. They met in a small rented space above a bookstore. Pencils, sketch pads, silence, and healing. On the wall hung a simple message. We draw because words are sometimes too small for what we feel. And beneath it, in a black frame, was the drawing of a man standing in the rain, because that's how it all began. Not with fame, not with a gallery, but with someone who stopped and listened